those of you who've already gone, would you mind just putting something in the chat, please? That would make more sense. So we're introducing ourselves. I think the next person was Richard.
Yeah, morning all. Yeah, I'm Richard Pettit. I'm a carer support worker in the mental health project at Care for the Carers. So happy Carers Week. It's Carers Week this week. Do check out our website if you want to see what's going on around East Sussex. Nice to meet you all, and I'm looking forward to the talks. Thanks.
Brilliant, thank you. It's also Loneliness Awareness Week, and it's Pride Month, hence my outrageous background. So yes, there's a lot going on at the moment. And Jan.
Morning everyone, my name's Jan. I work for
Oh, Jan has disappeared at an impromptu moment. Okay, I'm not sure what's happened. Hopefully she'll come back. Claire.
Hello, I'm Claire Conlon. I'm from the East Pict team, and I'll be presenting for you this morning to tell you a little bit more about my role and what we might be able to offer members of this group.
Lovely, thank you, Claire. And Alistair. Can't hear you.
Morning all, Alistair from Hastings Heart. We run the Community Information Hub in Hastings Town Centre. Always nice to see everybody here. It's such a busy meeting, and it's always interesting to know what's going on and be able to figure out how best we can all address mental health issues in our town. Thank you.
Well said, Alistair. Yes, and the same for the whole of East Sussex. That's why we're all here. So thank you very much for that. So yes, if anyone wants to put anything into the chat at any point, please do so. If anyone thinks there's something I should know that's in the chat, I won't necessarily be looking at it because I'm trying to do several things at once. So just have a quick look at the agenda today. So we've got, first of all, the CN padlet. So we've got Claire and David today talking about that. Then we've got an item on LGBT from Peter and myself. Tackling loneliness, an update on the mental health comms campaign across Sussex and in East Sussex. Then we'll have a break that may be moved slightly if things get a bit out of kilter. Then we'll have something around the Vicarious trauma training from Liz, some commissioning updates from Kenny, and then there's some more partner updates as well, just to finish. So I think that's going to be the agenda. If there's anything that you feel you want to say towards the end of the meeting, please let me know. If we don't get time today, again, please let me know, because we always are after new agenda items. So moving on, Claire, can I just ask you, does your name have an I in it?
I'm really sorry. It does on my email, but
yeah,
that's a mistake that I've just lived with. So okay. I'll accept either.
That's a Sara who is spelt Sara. These things are important. So okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. Over to you.
Not at all. Okay. So yeah, good morning everybody. That's me. I'm the senior nurse practitioner in the PICT team, but we have been previously known as the SEN team, which is why it's a little bit confusing sometimes, but we are now known as the PICT team, which stands for Psychologically Informed Consultation and Training. And I'm here with my colleague.
Oh, I'm going to be private here. Yeah, morning all. So we're going to be speaking a little bit around the Padlet, which Claire will speak to a little bit later. But just before that, I want to kind of set the scene. So one of the very exciting things around advances in mental health services has been a community mental health transformation. So if I could ask whoever's in control of the slides, if we could change that to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is part of the NHS long-term plan, which in our experience, some people can feel very, very informed about, and other people in some networks can feel like this is very, very new and not being discussed about enough, maybe in certain sectors. And this is recognising that the way that we think about mental health needs to change in concert with how we think about mental health as a society. And so rather than having sort of that very acute bottleneck of trying to get an appointment with your GP and then being in mental health services and then you're a mental health patient, and then if you're not mental health services, you're not able to access support, this is much more thinking about how we can support easier access to get evidence-based interventions around mental health, and how primary care can function as a much easier sort of no wrong door approach, so that people can go to their local primary care network, go to the local GP practice, and think about what some of their challenges might be in terms of mental health. And then through neighbourhood mental health teams, these can be picked up much more quickly, and people can access treatment without having to jump through lots and lots of hurdles as well. So this is about integrating primary and mental health care so that people aren't falling through the gaps. We know that this is especially the case for people with complex emotional needs. So as part of the transformation programme, there were 3 populations which were given a special focus. One was around eating disorders, one was community rehab, and one was about complex emotional needs. And this is because we know that often having a diagnosis of personality disorder, for example, can mean that people are often not eligible for many types of support. It also can mean that the way that people can present who can struggle with complex emotional needs can be quite confusing or unclear of how best people can best understand and manage the people that they work with as well. So this is looking at quite a big culture shift of how we can support people a bit differently. And when we're thinking about supporting people around complex emotional needs, this is, we're sort of thinking about, you know, almost a sort of triangle of care, really. This is about supporting people with complex emotional needs. This is about supporting people who care for people with complex emotional needs as well. And it's lovely James is on the call, who we link up with Care for the Carers. And also how we support professionals as well. Because we know that with transformation, it is going to mean that people are going to be discharged back to primary care once people's treatment is completed. And this can mean that people might be presenting in primary care, you know, maybe acting into older patterns and ways of coping or getting their needs met. That can feel quite overwhelming or quite confusing. And so the psychologically informed consultation and training team is here to provide more support to primary care. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So yes, so if you're looking on the left, this is a little bit old now, but the old state, I think we'd all be familiar with, is the idealized view that we'd all have our own named GP, and that GP would be able to sort of be the go-to person who would then identify exactly where we'd be able to access treatment and support once that's been identified. What we know in practice is that that isn't actually able to be possible, that in terms of having a named GP, I think primary care has moved away from that, and now it's much more about within the primary care network that being held by a team as well. I'm not sure if people are aware of the emotional wellbeing service, but that's been one of the changes as part of the transformation, is having new types of staff roles within your GP practices where people can go and request mental health support as well. So, if we can just go to the next slide, please. And in terms of where we're at, so I'm the clinical lead of Thinking Well, which is the Tier 3 specialist service for personality disorders in East Sussex. And the way that we're kind of thinking is about the expertise and understanding and our links with obviously our therapeutic communities as well, is how best we can reach out to people outside of our little bubble and think about how we can best work with all the partners and all the services that people will be involved with. What we know is how important it is in terms of supported housing, in terms of social services as well, in terms of carers groups, and in terms of other voluntary organisations, because the majority of the support people will be accessing in primary care will be through the VCSE or through carers as well. So when we're looking here, this is very much thinking about that kind of in that green box, that kind of getting support. These would be services that would be accessible for everyone. In terms of getting more support, this is where the sort of specialist services would be, such as Thinking Well. We can move on to the next slide, please. So here's who's in the team. It's the multidisciplinary team. made up of mental health nursing and psychology as well. We're quite a small service, covering quite a big area as well. So we're looking to think about how best we can use our resource to reach out and to raise awareness of what people can access so that people can have a bit more of a safety net within primary care. So just go on to the next slide, please. And the way that we're doing this is thinking about this in sort of 4 different areas. I think first of all, something that's really important to think about here is the importance of co-production and co-facilitation. And we're aware of always the risk of that being quite tokenistic, and we're really striving not to do that, but to sort of think about how can we have the voices and the understanding and the insight of experts by experience. That's something that we're incredibly grateful for in Thinking Well, and also from colleagues who are in the PIC service as well, who we're very happy to have joining us and feel very privileged to be working with. Within carers groups, that is a psychoeducational course open to anyone who is a supporter or carer or someone with complex emotional needs. It does not need to include the person with lived experience. It could be completely independent. So this is for anyone who's supporting someone with complex emotional needs, can access a course that's run, I believe, 3 times a year, and covers sort of 6 sessions as well. And we've linked in with Care for the Carers about how they can go on to access further support or guidance around having a carer's assessment and so on. PICT is the part of the offer that we're providing where people can access training or consultation. So this could be, for example, for practice nurses or people from the emotional being service or other professionals within primary care, of when working with someone and feeling a bit stuck or feeling like they might be caught in a pattern or not really clear where to go ahead. And what we know for people with complex emotional needs is often it can really benefit from having a team approach. And this is where professionals in primary care can complete a quick referral and contact the team, and we're happy to meet them and think about what's going on for them and how we might understand the dilemma they're sitting with and what might be helpful next steps for them as well. We also have training as well, which we're very happy to, I think probably Claire's going to speak to more when we talk about the PICT Padlet in a second. Mm-hmm. Something that we really hoped that we would be able to have up and running. Unfortunately, as I think people are probably aware, there have been issues around sort of funding, just more generally across the system, was around having some groups. These are service user network groups for people with complex emotional needs in primary care that people can access around peer support. And it would be co-facilitated by a clinical member of the team and a member from the voluntary sector. We're in the process of exploring how we can make that happen. And we have had, that is something that our goal is to work towards, of having that additional support group within primary care, so that people can access that after treatment. I'm realizing I'm talking a reasonable amount, so I'm going to pass over to Claire now. I think you're going to speak to the Padlet, is that okay?
Yes, if we go on to the next slide, if we click on the link, hopefully the link will work, the Padlet.
It won't in my view,
Claire. Will it not?
Can I ask that everyone does that in their version of the, you should have received the PowerPoint. Is that okay?
Yes, sorry, my fault. I thought that would link from the slide.
Or you can share your screen. I'm just trying to sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my screen if that
Thank you.
if that would help.
Okay, I'll unshare.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so that link normally does work, and it will take you to this, which is our Padlet. And as Dave was saying, this is where you can actually kind of see in more detail what the offer is. So to any primary care organisation working with people with complex emotional needs, we can offer a range of training and consultation, and alongside that we also offer a course for carers and supporters of people with complex emotional needs. So the training that we offer, which is, thank you, Dave, that's just in the second section. So each of these little tabs you can slide up and down. As it says, it's very much geared towards gaining a deeper understanding of what we mean by complex emotional needs, thinking about the difficulties that that can be raised in day-to-day working, and then really thinking about some practical steps in terms of how do we manage this work and how do we address the challenges. And we have a one-day training that we offer. We can offer that online or in person. We also offer smaller kind of modules of training, which we can put together in a package. So we could look at specific, if there are specific areas that perhaps organisations or services want to focus on, so we could put together something more bespoke. We have actually worked on a half-day package specifically around boundaries, because that very often is an area of particular challenge, and I think sort of crystallises a lot of the difficulties in terms of the work that can sometimes be faced by different teams. But what we're keen to do is really to listen and adapt and develop what the offer is, really listening to the challenges of people that we're working with. And so far we have worked with parts of adult social care. We've delivered training to different providers of supported accommodation. That's something we're continuing to do at present. And we've worked with a local community arts organisation who do a lot of work with people with complex emotional needs. And we're really just trying to reach out, and it's part of the reason that we're here today really, is just to make the organisations represented here just aware of what we can offer, and to know that there's some dates that we've lined up, but also if those may or may not be suitable for your team, we can actually have a conversation really. And I'd really welcome anybody to just get in touch if you're interested, just to let me know if you want to have a discussion, and to see what we might be able to put together in terms of a package for yourselves. I don't want to go through it all, because obviously you can look at the padlet at your leisure, but also just to draw your attention to the consultation that we offer. So what we recognise is that you know, sometimes there can be maybe individual people that you know we might come across in our work that we can feel really stuck with, and not knowing just really what to do and how to progress with that person who's accessing our service. And the consultation is an hour-long, I suppose, a 2-to-1 hour-long place for reflection, really, some time to think, and just to take a step back, I guess, from the day-to-day challenges for the team. Sorry, what you're going to say?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I think it's, you know, it's interesting in terms of integrating primary and secondary mental health care, because I think there's so much that we can learn from primary care about how we work with people. But I'm also, there's lessons in terms of how we work with people in adult mental health care, in terms of, you know, when there is complexity of having more of a team approach to that, and having space to make sense of things, because we know that burnout can often happen when, for example, a GP is working with someone on their own and not having any spaces to make sense of what's going on or different perspectives.
Yeah, it's really helpful, and I think we take for granted in you know our work day to day that we have a lot of time for reflection, but that sometimes isn't always necessarily something that is as easy or straightforward for other organisations. There's also information there about the carers course, which, as Dave was saying earlier, we run. And we do that in partnership with Care for the Carers, who've given us a lot of support, and just seeing Richard there on screen, who often joins us as part of the course in our last session, so that there's that really nice link in terms of people being able to access sort of ongoing support from their organisation. I'm going to stop talking now because I've talked a lot, but do have a look on the Padlet and a rummage around and just have a think about the offer that is there, because it's there for everyone on the call today. Yeah, do get back to me and have a conversation. I'm willing to talk about what we might be able to offer for your service.
Great, that's lovely. Thank you, Claire and Dave, for your time today. On that first slide, there's the email address for the team. So if you want to follow up on that, you've got further questions, you can get in touch. But that's really fantastic. And I know it's a very small team, but you're doing amazing things in a very large patch with a lot of people. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate the time to talk today.
Thank you. Okay, so next item on the agenda is MindOut. So we've got a new member of the Mental Health Action Group, Peter, who introduced himself earlier. So shall I hand over to you, Peter? And you can say a few words. Actually, sorry, before you start, I was just going to say I'm still in regretful mode in terms of we did actually give some money. We had some health. I'm always banging on about this. We had some health inequalities funding a couple of years ago, and it unfortunately finished. I'm really hoping that you and the other LGBT services at some point in the future receive further funding, because I'm really, like a lot of organisations here, there's a bit of a dearth of, a lack of funding at the moment. So thank you very much for everything you're doing, in that context.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. So I haven't brought a big presentation today because today was more about just kind of introducing myself, talking a bit about MindOut and our services, and just kind of making sure people are aware of who we are and that we're here in East Sussex supporting as well. So just a little bit about myself. So my background, I've been in charities now for 20 years. I've also been in leadership roles such as running a national association of, membership association of professionals as the chair of that association. My background really kind of comes from governance. So it's all about running operationally and making sure that the charities are compliant, doing things well. I do things, I've been the data protection officer in the previous charity. I was the lead for risk management for strategic and operational risks. And I've also been the health and safety lead. And I also led on volunteering programs for over 20 years as well. So I've got a good breadth of experience, and I came to work at MindOut 4 months ago now. So MindOut is an LGBTQ mental health service that runs mostly in Sussex, but it also has a national profile for our online support. And we specialise in mental health services for the LGBTQ community. Now, I know there's lots of mental health services out there, and Mind is a good example. So we were originally part of Mind, and MindOut was created based on the fact that people in the community, the LGBT community, felt that they needed specialist services to support them, to help with the needs of people who are dealing with mental health issues and not wanting to have to always attribute it to being LGBTQ. We've been going for 25 years, and we became independent just over 10 years ago, so we're an independent charity. I was brought into MindOut because about just over a year ago, they went through a period of restructure. And I think if you're working with charities or aware of what's happening in the charitable sector, that's quite a common thing. And it also happens in private sector and the public sector as well. So we're not unique in that respect. But for charities, we don't have any guaranteed income. So everything is all about funding, donations, being part of collaborations within the areas that we operate in to try and make sure that we're still here. So I was brought in to support MindOut to really kind of, after the consultation process, and to restructure, to reform, and to get us fit for moving forward for the future, using skills and experiences. Some of the services that we currently specialise in is our advocacy services, which you'll see some on the screen. We have our peer mentoring, befriending, support groups, online support and counselling. And I thought I'd just give you a few kind of statistics of what a small charity like MindOut is achieving at the moment. So, for example, in our advocacy, we had over 990 inquiries for advocacy support in 24-25. So it shows us a real need out there for people in terms of their support in advocacy. In peer mentoring, we had 159 active relationships in 24-25. Our befriending services, we've had over 134 requests for befriending services. We have support groups, and again, over 372 requests for support with our support groups. This includes our over 50s support groups for the LGBT community and our trans and non-binary groups as well. And our online support in 23-24, I'm still getting the stats for this last year, so apologies. We had over 2,000 interactions for our online support chat. Our online support chat is an anonymous way for people to reach out and ask for help and support. And in 23-24, we had 1,660 actual chats with individuals who are reaching out for support. This online support includes things like suicide prevention. So a really, really essential element of support for people in the community across the country. And this is a national reach. Because of our online support and because it's becoming more and more well known, we do get a lot of international people that are also reaching, some from other countries trying to reach out to us for support, particularly because of persecution they might face in their own countries because of being LGBTQ. Unfortunately, we just don't have the funds or the capacity to support outside of the United Kingdom. So that's something we unfortunately have to decline on a regular basis. We also do counselling. So our counselling support is run by 2 part-time employees at 14 hours each. And we are supporting, we received 215 applications for support in 24-25. We started 138 new sessions or interactions with individuals in counselling support in 24-25, which was almost double what we'd done in the previous year. And that is mostly facilitated through a lot of volunteering. So volunteers who volunteer for MindOut, who are either trained, qualified professional counsellors or people who are coming towards completion of their qualifications and training. And so we would assess in MindOut who is suitable to do their counselling support. In 23-24, for a third of the year, our waiting list was what we class as red. So extremely high numbers of people waiting and needing support. However, in 24-25, we've managed to reduce that down. So actually, it never reached more than amber, which is what we class as a manageable amount of inquiries. But we've always got more inquiries than we'll be able to deliver upon. And another aspect of MindOut I thought would be really useful to share with you all today is the fact that we also do training. So we have a vast experience of going into universities, public sector, hospitals or associations, and we've also do things with the private sector on supporting and helping LGBTQ mental health within those areas. So, for example, we've done a big piece with Vodafone. We put together bespoke training about their needs, supporting their employees with mental health support, particularly around their LGBTQ awareness. So explaining things like the A to Z of LGBTQ, which can sometimes be a bit of a mystery for some people, not trying to understand what is this and how do I approach this and how do I communicate with people from all the different areas of the LGBT community. We can help with all those kind of things. So just to say to anyone there, if you do need help or you're struggling to kind of understand that community and you need some training, there are stuff that you can access through our services as well. And we'll be happy to have those discussions with you. So that's just a little bit of a background there. So the year, my first year at MindOut is going to be focusing on the structure and the governance and really the foundations of the organisation, making sure that we're strong and fit for purpose. I'll be working with the board on our strategy for the next 3 years. So that will be coming out next financial year, and making sure that we really kind of raise the profile of MindOut and the services, and that we're able to grow our services to meet the needs of the community. So I just wanted to share that little update with you on where we are in terms of MindOut. And Sarah and I have had a little conversation as well, and Sarah's happy for me to share some of the work that we're doing regarding the support we're providing to the trans and non-binary community. So over 50% of our services are accessed by trans and non-binary people, which is a really high number, but it also shows that actually that is an area of the population who are really struggling and need support with their mental health. Being LGBTQ does not increase your risk of having mental health issues. I need to be really clear on that. It's the factors around you, societal factors, things that impact upon you that increase your risks of mental health issues. So being a trans or non-binary person doesn't mean you are more susceptible to mental health. Being a trans or non-binary person who is facing different societal pressures causes you to suffer mental health issues. So it's things around you, experiences, things that have happened in your life, etc. So what we are doing, we are not an advocate, we are not a lobbying organisation. You know, we are a mental health charity. We are not there to, push on the government from an agenda perspective, but what we are here to do is support and represent the people that we are looking after and caring for and helping. So what we want to do is raise the voices of those people that we support, to make sure that they are heard, to make sure people see what's happening to that minority group of the community. And as such, we work in partnerships with other LGBTQ plus organisations and non-LGBTQ organisations to put forward our name, our brand, our voice to support all areas of the community. And particularly, just because we're talking about it today, trans non-binary community, and trying to raise examples of how the decisions that are happening, and we're not being political, I want to be really clear, just impact on people's mental health, their well-being. So we are issued statements to say that we support obviously our trans and non-binary brothers and sisters and the community, and we are working with other associations to raise feedback and statistics and information about how things are impacting on people in that community. We are not there to say what should or shouldn't be in the law, but what we are saying is just that people who are affected should be communicated with, listened to, and involved with what's happening. And so we are supporting alongside that. Other things we're trying to do as an organisation, and we started literally, I think it was last week, is we're starting to raise the voices by sharing articles on our socials. So for example, one of our freelance trans and non-binary supporters has given an article what it's like to be a trans non-binary person at the moment, just so you can see a person behind the name, because it's easy to talk about a group of people and not think about the individuals within that group and how it impacts on different people in different ways, and everyone has their own life stories. So we are trying to raise the voices of individuals so that people could see the real people behind what's going on in terms of the impact that societal factors have on impacting people's mental health. And I know, Sarah, you were happy to share something as well about your experiences and support and that with the trans non-binary. If you want to chip in at all, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Peter. Peter's organisation MindOut's not political, and I'm not political either. However, because of the Supreme Court judgment and some of the things that have been going on, I just thought I would share a story, which is my lived experience. So one of my parents sadly died late last year. I wanted to briefly share her story to give some context to the issues faced by trans non-binary people. So when I was about 13 years old, my dad finally decided to start living as a female. That was something he'd wanted to do since being a small child. So I'm now going to swap out pronouns, as we did at the time, for my parent from he to she. Alice had gender affirming surgery in the 1980s, and she lobbied for trans people. She received one of the first gender recognition certificates in 2005, which rightly allowed her to change all of her legal documentation to female. Meanwhile, she also co-founded 2 trans charities and counselled hundreds of people who were struggling with suicidal thoughts. Alice was awarded an OBE in 2013. We're really proud of her. When she became unwell with cancer late last year, having lived as Alice for over 40 years, more than half of her life, she was, of course, treated as a woman on a women's ward. She could use the women's toilets. Alice was an old lady. She was a woman. She was Granny Alice to my 3 children. To think anything else or to treat her any differently would have been outrageous. Alice would have been utterly horrified at the apparent reverse turn that's now occurred following the Supreme Court ruling. We'll have to see what happens. Her mental health had already been affected, and quite rightly, Peter said it wasn't inevitable, but over her lifetime, she was affected by trauma, including bullying when she was a child, abuse through school, and complete rejection by her birth family, her mother and her siblings, when she affirmed her gender. Ultimately, she just wanted to live a quiet and peaceful life without unfair challenge or pointless prejudice. Following the Supreme Court ruling on the meaning of sex in the Equality Act, the Equality and Human Rights Commission issued interim guidance. You're probably aware of that. And it's kind of left TNBI people in limbo and unhelpfully given permission for some anti-trans rhetoric and behaviours in some people. So the Council's now undertaking a consultation on its updated code of practice for services, public functions and associations. The consultation aims to gather feedback on how the practical implications of the judgment can best be reflected in the code, and it will be submitted for ministerial approval at the end of this month. I could be wrong, but I have heard rumours this may be delayed, the process may be delayed. I mean, perhaps rightly so, to allow proper consultation. However, it's a really difficult wait for anyone who is trans non-binary. They'll appreciate your acknowledgement and acceptance more than ever. And I've put up there the Sussex Gender Service statement. I'm not lobbying for you to do this, but I think that's quite good messaging. We're all becoming aware and trained in trauma-informed practice. We need to remember that for some people, their experience of trauma is current. It happens right now on a daily basis, which of course will be impacting their mental health and well-being. And as the lovely people I'm sure that you are all today here, I'm sure you're already on board. I just wanted to stress how important it is for services and communities to actively make trans non-binary people as welcome as possible, acknowledging their very real experiences and their difficulties at this time. I've also included that link actually to the wonderful Natasha's blog, if you want to have a look at that. And also just a big shout out for the Clare project, who are actively supporting trans people as well as MindOut. So that's what I wanted to say. It's always good to share lived experience, I feel, you know, hopefully making it a little bit more real. So thank you for that. I don't know if anyone's got any questions at all for Peter in particular.
That was amazing, Sarah. Thank you. The only thing I wanted to ask everyone as well is to consider that it is Pride Month, and obviously a lot of organisations and public bodies, they all put forward their pronouncements of support for the LGBT community. One thing I've learned quite quickly in this role is that the LGBT community can't do everything alone. They can't stand alone to try and fight for people's rights. And I don't mean this again as a political sense, but just in terms of acceptance and involvement and engagement. And if people outside the community are true allies, it's about being proactive with your allyship. So it's easy to say I am an ally, I have trans friends, I have gay friends, I have lesbian friends, etc. Actually, what proactive steps do you do to support your community, and what, as an organisation or as an individual, and think about those things. What could you do to be more proactive in your allyship to support people? And I'm not asking people to be political. It's just about supporting people maybe in your local community or as an organisation, being clear in your communications, how you support. And that's just something I ask you to consider as part of Pride Month, not just as to do with the Supreme Court ruling or anything like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I think we'd better move on actually because of the time as well. So can I introduce Gill? You're going to give us an update on the Tackling Loneliness project.
Thank you, Sarah. So the update is, can I have the next slide, please? I'm going to go through these quite rapidly. So most of you will be familiar with our the Connecting People and Places report, annual report from Public Health in 2023, with a real focus around loneliness and the importance of connection, which prompted a 2-year funded programme by Public Health, and I'm the programme facilitator of Tackling Loneliness, which is ending in 6 months' time. So just wanted to, anybody not on board yet, this by the end of our presentation, hopefully you're inspired to come on board, and there's lots of opportunities to do that. So next slide, please. Is that coming along? Okay, so this week, yes, it's Loneliness Awareness Week, and the Marmalade Trust have been doing this for a number of years. It's their main focus. The theme is meeting loneliness together, recognising the stigma attached to talking about loneliness, negativity. I've put some quotes up there because this is the sort of thing we are sharing within our Loneliness Matters workshops, that shame and fear conspire to turn loneliness into a self-perpetuating condition, triggering self-doubt, which in turn lowers self-esteem and discourages us from reaching out for help. That's a really key part of what we've been learning, and how we've been talking with and sharing our learning with other services and projects across East Sussex. And it is also important to recognise that it's a human condition, but it's important to recognise that if you're lonely for too long, it is very damaging to your health. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I should have mentioned, actually, Loneliness Awareness Week, there's a lot going on, and I've been going to some of these events this week, which have been really exciting, around raising awareness of loneliness within. I'm here in Eastbourne today. Compass Arts are doing some events around loneliness with their artists, and many of whom have serious mental illness diagnosis and have experienced trauma. But I just want to mention now that our Loneliness Matters Connected events, working alongside some of our key partners, including the infrastructure organisations like RVA, HVA, 3VA, as well as some partners including Age UK, Sussex, and Connecting and Care for the Carers. We're recognising the value of delivering our workshops in conjunction with the Connecting the Connectors event. So our Loneliness Matters workshop, some of the learning is obviously around the definition of loneliness and why it's very different from social isolation, trying to break down the stigma, having lots of conversations. It's very interactive, our workshops, explaining what the loneliness body feels like and why it has such a huge impact on your mental and emotional health, as well as your physical health, and also sharing ideas around what helps to tackle and reduce and prevent loneliness. And also for those who are practitioners within the our Loneliness Matters training, actually what you can do as an individual or as a group or as an organisation or as a charity to tackling loneliness in your role. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share this because I think it's very pertinent. This is an area within our Loneliness Matters workshop we talk and focus on, because it is often questions, what comes first? Is it loneliness, or is it a mental health feeling, feeling down, feeling anxious, feeling depressed? And we recognise something that we discuss within our workshop is the bi-directional relationship between loneliness and mental health. And we recognise it's what does come first, but we do recognise preventing people from becoming chronically lonely is really important, and having the opportunity to talk about feelings and talk about loneliness and having opportunities to connect with others is really important as well. Next slide, please. I think I've included the downwards. Here we are, the downward spiral of loneliness. Again, we continue to discuss this around, what's called the downward spiral of loneliness, which describes that from personal circumstances and what could happen if things aren't addressed at an earlier stage. And as this statement is if someone's in it's too long in a downward spiral, increased severity of feeling lonely, it leads to chronic loneliness. And once someone is chronically lonely, it's highly unlikely for them to overcome their loneliness without being on the receiving end of considered interventions. And I know that many of you will recognise this. And the best time to intervene and pull an individual into an upward spiral is before their loneliness becomes chronic. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Jill, is there a delay?
There is a bit of a delay, but it's okay because it gives people time to read it. Because I'm as you will notice, I'm racing through this quite rapidly. It's just one so our Tackling Loneliness Hub. For those of you who are aware of it, there's a Tackling Loneliness Hub, which is an online learning exchange space, and our Tackling Loneliness program has an East Sussex group, and we encourage anyone interested to join the Tackling Loneliness online hub, and then create an account and then join our Tackling Loneliness in East Sussex group. Now, it has been a little bit, I would say, dormant. However, the good news is we are starting to increase getting the stories and lived experience of people and loneliness, which we are co-producing. So there'll be more articles on how to get involved and how to connect with our Loneliness Matters workshops over the coming weeks and months. So I do encourage anyone who's interested to join their hub, and then that gives us extra pressure to actually get things out there that's interesting for you all as well. So it's really important. I think that's what I want to say there for now, because I think the next slide is going to describe a few more things. Oh, here we go. Now some of you are on the call today, so we are working with supporting a number of services, communities, community groups and charities across the county to get those more in-depth stories and experiences from people around loneliness. I think, Peter, we've already connected, haven't we, to talk about that, perspectives about the LGBTQ community. Got a fantastic story from recognising the importance of co-production, how valuable that is in actually it's giving people a voice, giving people agency. And we've got a fantastic is it a cartoon, Ricky? I don't want to call sort of, or an animation. It doesn't move. It's a cartoon. It's very powerful and really insightful about the how useful co-production is in tackling loneliness. And that's from Ricky from Possibility People from the League. We're also working with Southdown around looking at how to use that user-focused monitoring approach around training people with mental health needs to talk to others about their experiences of loneliness, taking that approach. Another example is working with HVA, Mr. Hastings and St Leonard's. I think, JC, you're here today, looking to co-produce Loneliness Matters with Men in Mind workshop, and getting those voices of men to talk about why loneliness matters to them and what has helped to make them feel less lonely or prevent loneliness. So we're going to continue to work with all these different groups and services, and if anybody's interested, we've pretty much captured who we want to get to so far, but if you recognize you're working with any of the people that we want to prioritize on that list, older people, young people, people in debt and addictions to gambling in particular, we're interested in hearing from, because we're covering a lot of the rest. But please do get in touch. So I've left my name and email in at the earlier bit of this meeting in the chat box. So please do get in touch, because we're really interested to see how you'd like to get involved with our program. So again, other opportunities, there's the hub, there's Connecting the Connectors events. We've got a number of events hopefully coming up over the summer and into the autumn. People will be advised about how to get on board with those, because they'll be across the county. Our shared learning groups is a continual theme, and one of our most important groups is our creative loneliness matters and creative health group, because we recognise how the arts are so good in tackling loneliness. And we're going to be doing some themed knowledge exchange webinars with around creative health coming forward, around social health, which is coming more and more into the fore. And that's around tackling loneliness and recognising loneliness is a very serious serious issue. And then the guided conversations, which we're using to gather those stories, is one way of gathering those stories for people with a lived experience. So around loneliness, I think that will be it, Sara. I think my final slide is my contact details, but that's also already in the chat box. Yeah, did I do that quite quickly?
That was brilliant. Thank you.
My pleasure. I know everyone wants to break. So I need to apologise in advance because I probably have to go in the next 15 minutes or so, because there's lots of you know, our Learners Awareness Week events happening, and we're just popping around there and taking photos, that sort of thing.
That's fine. Don't worry, Jill. I think I'm actually going to move to having the break now, and because that's kind of splits the meeting almost in half, and we can all look after our physical health. So perhaps if we go now and come back 5 minutes, so just after 11, give us enough time to stretch and get a cup of tea. So I'll see you then. maybe we could start to come back now. Thank you all of you for your lovely messages in the chat. That was nice. Okay. Right, shall we, Michelle, are you there? Before I get started.
I am.
Brilliant. Okay, so the next bit we're going to kind of whiz through. Well, Michelle's got perhaps a bit more to say, but it's a long-term piece of work that we're involved with, Pan Sussex, and we've had an item on this before. So it's about getting messaging out to people, particularly groups where they might not otherwise see or know about it. So, for example, if someone's digitally excluded, they've got no smartphone, no internet. How are they going to know about how to contact and what our talking therapies are for? So how are they going to have that information in front of them? So that's one of the things that we've been looking at. So I've been particularly focused on digitally excluded, and Michelle, with her expertise, is more involved with English as a second language. There's also neurodiversity. We've got Kate on the line today, but that's a separate strand, looking at sort of quite different nuances about how people with neurodiversity might want the message, how they might want the messaging set out and what sort of information they might need. They're all quite different kind of groups, but we're trying to make it a cohesive campaign, so it's actually quite tricky. I'll move on to the next slide. So those people who are digitally excluded, and there's obviously a lot of intersectionality here, because you could be old, you could be young, you could be living in an area where there's no internet access. So there's all sorts of reasons why you might be digitally excluded. So the first thing that we're doing, and in parallel, we're thinking about how to do it, but the first thing we're doing is gathering a product, so putting a product together, which is really simple. It's in plain English, it's accessible, hopefully, to as many people as possible, bearing in mind that the reading age, I think, is 9 to 11 years. So it's incredibly low. We want to make it really simple. So that's the first piece of work, and we've got some help from the wonderful people at Health Watch. So we had Zoe from Health Watch West Sussex, who is, I think, contacting, and we've got Alex here from Health Watch. You may not even know about this yet because it's hot off the press, but we're going to be gathering engagement, and we're going to have a survey and then a small focus group for people who might be digitally excluded. And then step 2, and this is where I might want your help to get involved, is getting this hard copy. So it may be you know, a letter, it may be a postcard, so we're not quite sure yet, it may be 2 different kinds of things, but how to get this hard copy out into the hands of those people. So far I've got offers from the library service, so they'll stock it in the library, family hubs, so that'll get to families, perhaps some of the more disadvantaged ones. And then in terms of adult social care here at the council, I've got a number of teams who have said, well, we can piggyback that letter on the back of our letter out to our person who is elderly or who has sensory needs or needs equipment, etc. So I'm trying to sort of find ways, vehicles to get that information out. And that's where I'm interested in, if you can help me with that at all. You don't have to say now, but if you can contact me, if you think you can help with that, that would be fantastic. Clara, oh, you've just put your hand down because probably what I just said.
Yes, only because you said I could contact you another time. But
yeah,
I
just thinking of the time.
Yeah, sure. I'll just say really quickly, because I was really interested. We're doing some work on the Tackling Loneliness program with the public health team, and at East Sussex County Council they were talking about using the prescription bags to get, you know, you can print messages on the prescription bags that then get taken to people's, you know, houses, and I thought that was must be a really effective way of getting some really key messages out to a whole load of people who perhaps otherwise don't engage with other messaging vehicles. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because I thought that was really interesting.
Thinking outside the box and on the bag, I mean, that is great, because the cost of postage means we just simply can't send this information out to everybody's post box. So that kind of thing is really good. Any ideas gratefully accepted. So that's basically my message for today. In terms of the timing, it'll probably be September before we're ready. but we're just getting everything in line, as I said, trying to do everything in parallel. Then we've also got this work stream where we're trying to reach people who live in East Sussex who may have English as a second language. So I'm going to pass over to Michelle, my colleague, for this part. Michelle, you there?
Yeah, could you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little bit quiet, but that's okay.
Oh, no.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, as long as you can hear me. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yes, the population I'm looking at, as Sarah said, is the people who have English as their second language. We know that this population experiences significant barriers to accessing all sorts of services, but in particular, when we're looking at mental health support, the outcomes are poor. So one of the reasons why we've kind of targeted this population. I'll just go through what we've kind of done or we're doing currently, and it's all kind of being done in parallel to one another. So we have been looking at to look at how we can, what type of comms we can get out. We've been looking at initially feedback and data that we currently have, and that may be around previous surveys and previous insights around communicating with this particular population. What we're also doing is arranging a focus group with community translators. So I believe we've got a tentative date booked in at the end of this month. A couple of the organisations that have been invited to that, that will be a co-production group to look at what shouldn't be included in comms for this population. And format and things like that. So I believe Vandu and the Sussex Interpretation Service are two of the organisations that have been invited to that. What we've also asked the translators to do before going to that meeting is to meet with, when they are providing translation to support to people, if they can just go through a little questionnaire that we've created with those people. And again, that will just help to inform that focus group. So some of the questions are around language, preferred language type. When we're talking about mental health, sometimes that can be really important. And also around formatting. And the other thing is we're looking at the languages to translate into when we do eventually sort out the comms. So we, funding wise and also just physical ability, we're not able to translate into every single language. So we're looking at ways to look at kind of the most utilised languages and the languages in this population. So we've received, we've kind of been in touch with certain organisations, one of them being the Links Project, who have told us which their kind of top languages of the people that utilise their service, but also we're looking at the top 10 most frequently requested languages for translation through the translation services. So yeah, as Sarah said, obviously once we're hoping around, from September onwards to kind of know what format we're looking at and hopefully this, and looking at the languages and how this can all be sent out. But, we'd appreciate anyone's help in terms of once we've sorted out the format and we know exactly where we're going with it, help from partners around getting that information out would be great. But if any other insights, then my email's on here if anyone can contact me with any further support or help.
Lovely. Thank you, Michelle. I can see there's some really good ideas coming in the chat as well, so we'll have a look through those. Thank you very much for those. I was also just going to say, I think Jonathan's on the call from Friends, Families, Travellers, so we're not forgetting about this group. And Jonathan's quite rightly said that actually because of the different communities within that set, then you may need, for Roma, for Gypsies, you may need different. So Jonathan's going to help us with that as well. So we're trying to think about all these different communities. And Kate, thank you very much. I haven't said very much about your work, but perhaps we can send something out. I know you're doing quite a lot of work with the SPFT Working Together group, aren't you, with the neurodiversity?
Yes. Yes, I can give you an update. I've been seeking consultation with 2 different neurodivergent groups. One is the Sussex Partnerships EBE Neurodivergent Working Group, and the other one is with LEAP. Yeah, and we've been looking at things from a neurodiverse perspective rather than neurotypical, because there are some differences that it's important to give recognition to, and one of them is the way we use language, how we make information accessible, because, as you know, neurodivergence also includes dyslexia. So we want to make sure that any information that's sent out is accessible in terms of text on paper, that it's well spaced, that it's explicit, and that, you see, the images up there, I'm afraid, will need to be removed. We're doing more consultation on with the comms, because one of the difficulties is that there are people with neurodivergence can have difficulty recognizing certain images and what they're supposed to mean. And also there are certain colours that need to be avoided. So we are giving further feedback on the graphics that would be used so that they're not actually confusing. There's been quite a bit of feedback on this already, so we're hoping that a newer version that can be sent out fairly soon that sort of recognises how to make the message far more accessible. Yes, so I'm just going to be meeting with LEAP again next week to get further feedback from them, because we're also doing a short survey, because we want to make sure again that the language is reflective of what it's like to live with neurodivergence. For example, in the general mental health literature that goes out, for example, so we're giving a list of symbols like, are you feeling anxious, for example. For a neurodiverse person, anxiety can be a daily experience. You're already living with a high level of anxiety, and that's your norm, which can then be triggered by simple things like a sensory experience, for example. So I've been talking to both those groups about how we pick up key language that reflects a neurodivergent experience, so that of what words to use to explain when we are feeling, when our mental emotional health is feeling more wobbly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot of work. Sorry.
I'm gonna have to just move on to the next item, if that's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. But no, that's fine. I'm just aware that I need to fit everybody's item
Absolutely.
in. So thank you. I mean, obviously, yeah, there's a lot of work going on. We're involving people with those types, so the neurodiverse, people from digitally excluded backgrounds, and people who have English as a second language. So we're doing quite a lot of engagement to try and make those resources and the way we're sending them out, all of that, you know, as accessible as possible. So thank you very much, Kate, because I know you're working like a trooper on all of that. Just going to move this slide on. So yes, we've now got the section that's for the suicide prevention agenda. So today we've got an update from Liz around some of the training that you've been doing.
Hi, yes, I have got a slide deck. So can I share my
Yeah,
slide?
I will unshare.
Yeah, so I have to say it's I will be sort of ad-libbing around things.
That's fine.
Where are we? As ever, I can't find it. There it is. Okay, I'm going to go right up to the top. Okay, I will be quick because I think most of you are probably familiar that we've got yes, I'll give you some background. So this is Pan Sussex piece of work. So I'm working across Sussex. Sorry, I should put this on slideshow, shouldn't I? Sorry, there we go, from the beginning. Has the screen gone blank? There we go. Yeah, so it's a Pan Sussex piece of work. So it's not just East Sussex, it's actually across a footfall from Chichester across as Hastings. It's a short-term project, as most of our work is at the moment. And originally it was set up to support, it's called Suicide Prevention Workforce Wellbeing. So essentially it's anybody who works to prevent suicide across that footfall, and it's around the workforce, but that workforce is very broad. It includes carers, it includes volunteers. not just people who are working in mental health services, housing, debt support, basically anybody who's in contact with anybody who's in mental health distress. And the original purpose was to set up reflective practice groups for a small niche audience of individuals who are at sort of more extreme exposure. And those reflective practice groups are sort of ongoing, and they're being evaluated by the University College London. But what we actually found, and this was actually before I came into post, was there was quite a significant audience of people who may potentially be exposed to, and we're calling it vicarious trauma, and I'll flick onto what that actually means. And this is probably a good visualization of it, actually, because I think most of us will recognize this, that when we're supporting someone who's in distress, there is actually a physiological effect on us. So if we're hearing someone talk about their experiences of distress, exposure to really significant harms, if we're being empathetic and really listening, it does impact on how we feel. And there's quite a strong evidence base about that being a real cognitive factor, but also that there are ways that we can actually provide sort of support and protection around that. So as part of the reflective practice groups, we realised we had some additional money. There was additional audience of people. So there was money and we had needs. So in quite a fortunate position. And what I was able to do was generate sort of a momentum around delivering some training. So I'll just flick through again. So there's an evidence base, obviously, around supporting our workforce. And we have a literature resource as well, which is really practical as well, which I think was quite useful for me, was recognising that, you know, anything to support and reduce harms is not rocket science. It's actually working in an environment which is supportive and nurturing and kind. But obviously recognising that for a lot of us, our caseloads are incredibly high. The complexity of the people we work with is incredibly complex. So though we can actually recognise what we should be doing, how do we actually do it in practice? So the training started on the 21st of May, and I'm not here to promote the training because the training is absolutely full. And that's probably one of the things I want to bring to the table here is sort of recognising that there's a massive unmet need in terms of supporting the well-being of those working in this sector. So the training is in 4 modules. There are 2 which sort of mirror each other. One is about the workplace well-being, how the workplace can actually provide a positive workplace, a nurturing and caring environment. The analogy I often use is if you're going on a building site, you'd have your hard hat on, you'd have your site boots, and you'd have your, you know, your luminous jacket. And actually, for some of us, we need to sort of have that sort of protective shield in our workplace in terms of the work we're doing, because otherwise we are going to end up experiencing vicarious trauma and potentially burnout, compassion fatigue, all those things. So there's something about the workplace. There's also actually holding our own personal resilience as well, and actually learning the skills that will keep us safe, and they will be unique to everybody. But there are some, you know, core messages that we can take away. The first one being that the work we do is very, very important, but obviously is extremely risky. And then there are sort of sub work around that. One is around reflective practice, which our colleagues at SPFT earlier in the session talked about, and the other is the role of diffusing and debriefing. So when there is an incident, how do you actually support the person who's been exposed and actually diminish the long-term impact? And sitting alongside that, there'll be a workbook. There'll be another piece of work called Safety Belt, which is around people who work with written material, and also the legacy of the project, because this project, as with a lot of work, is coming to an end in the autumn. So I'll just quickly sort of just give you an update in terms of, is that going to work? So sorry, this is a very clustered slide. But the thing that has really shocked me is the volume of demand for this work, and actually I'm down to 2 days a week now, and most of my time I'm sort of managing the waiting list. So making sure that people who are booked into training sessions present. So if you are booked into any training session and you get a prompt from me saying, are you still able to come? Please let me know if you can't make it, and please cascade that to anybody else who's booked into any of these training sessions, because the waiting lists are phenomenal. So these are summations. So 708 people were waiting for a place on one of the courses, Building Personal Resilience. Nearly 200 people waiting to access the workplace wellbeing. So, sorry, some of this is sort of quite prosaic. You know, if you're booked and you can't come, even at the last minute, let me know, because I've got up to 40 people waiting for places on 15 places, and I've got 40 people waiting for on the waiting list. So even at the last minute, there may well be someone who can attend. and just looking at what the feedback we've had so far. So as I say, the thing that has come up has really surprised me, because I have notes in my diary when I launched this training, you know, send out the promotional material again. You know, I wasn't expecting it to land so fervently, I suppose is the word. And that has really shocked me. So I think it's recognising that there is a significant exposure within our workforce. People actually are resilient, and they want to look at ways of sustaining themselves in the work they do. I say I've got a little bit of questionnaires stuff in there, and I can flick through that in a minute. But the audience has primarily been the people we expected, really. So a third of people are working in mental health settings. So direct exposures to people in mental distress and suicidality, but also the reach across an audience of people working in domestic abuse, in housing, working around safeguarding, substance misuse, etc. So I do think it has landed quite well. So the structure has there's an affinity, I think, with the audience. The evaluation so far, I've only had 70 responses, and we've got potentially up to 500 people coming across the whole schedule of training. The training finishes in September, but it does seem to be, you know, it's evolving as it goes along, because a lot of this is very novel. When I was commissioning this work, there wasn't a direct, you know, I couldn't go to a specific provider. I had to sort of reach out and develop the specification alongside the trainers, and it will evolve over the duration of the training. Essentially, that's it, really. I won't go into the details of the training. I can do if anybody wants any more information. But I think the thing that I've just come away with, and I'll stop sharing, is just recognising the burden on our workforce, really. And, you know, it sounds a bit prosaic, but just being kind to each other, recognising the stresses that we're under. If I was going to, you know, sort of do an elevator pitch on what this means, be kind to ourselves, be kind to our colleagues, and recognising that this is a very difficult area of practice at the moment. We've talked about different communities who experience distress, but also there's just a rising tide. And if you are working in this sector and listening and doing your work well, which we all want to do, I mean, a lot of us come into this work for vocational reasons. There is a risk that we can end up, you know, with, you know, you could phrase it as burnout, etc. We're using vicarious trauma, but also, you know, there are ways of protecting ourselves as well. So, you know, if you can, stick to your hours of work, you know, have a lunch break, speak to your colleagues, you know, just the soft stuff, the 5 ways to well-being. Nurturing ourselves in this work is just really important. So that's it, really. But also, if you are booked onto the training and if you can't come, please cancel your place. That's it for me. Sorry, it's very rapid fire.
No, that's absolutely fine, Liz. Has anyone got any questions for Liz at all? I mean, we need more of it, don't we? Clearly. Kate.
Yeah,
exactly. I was going to say this. Can this just become the norm, that it's continuously rolled out for people? I attended just the first one, and it's not only in mental health either. I'm an ex-teacher.
Yeah.
And there's very, very little support in the education sector.
Yeah.
You're supported about your good practice in lesson delivery, but not when it comes to all the huge other areas of support that you need to offer students. There's such a huge need for this training.
Yeah, and it is interesting, because I'm getting a lot of I mean, what's been really interesting, I mean, I've sort of said, you know, there's this many people on the waiting list, but I often get loads of messages from people. I had someone who was a head teacher, exactly as you're saying, can you do it in my school? You know, and I've never been involved in training where there's been such a fluidity of engagement. So thank you for everybody who's distributed the publicity, because I think it's really got out to the right audiences. As I say, it's what, you know, the people expected. But I think you're right. I mean, if anyone's got any ideas about how, I mean, I've talked about legacy. We're going to have a good recording of all the training. They're going to be workbooks, etc. But if anybody does have any, you know, ways of generating continuity, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation, because there's a big demand, as you say.
Yeah, I'd like to be in touch with you, Liz.
Yeah, please just drop me an email.
Thank you.
The only thing I'm going to say is, one, I'm getting over a cold. 2, I'm only down to 2 days a week. So if I'm delayed, I'm really apologies. I do respond to all my messages, but sometimes it is just a bit slow at the moment. The cold, I'm blaming the cold more than anything else.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Liz. Yeah, I mean, and for your what you said after your presentation, I think that's really, really important. And we perhaps don't listen to. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers, thank you.
Moving on, we've got Kenny. Are you there, Kenny? I think you were there before. So Kenny was going to give a quick update on what's happening in the commissioning world.
That's right. Hi, Sarah, and hello. It's really been an interesting meeting up to this point. Very, very insightful and interesting. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kenny Mackay. I'm a strategic commissioning manager for mental health in East Sussex. I work in the mental health commissioning unit. It's predominantly now is adult social care East Sussex County Council commissioners. But we very much consider ourselves an integrated commissioning unit because we commission on behalf of the ICB most often. And yeah, I'm just going to update you on the current activity, which unfortunately doesn't mean bags of money coming into the VCSE services, unfortunately, not at this stage. So it's quite dull stuff, but hoping some of you might find it of interest and importance. Currently, at the moment, we're involved in developing a housing programme. So we're just in the process of refining our strategic housing plan in East Sussex. And that's going to be moving in developing a working group to really drill down on some of the deliverables that are within that. So really looking at when and how certain processes and projects are going to be delivered and what the quality is going to look like on them. And just to give you a high level understanding of the 4 priorities that are built in our strategy. We've got improving integration, that is essentially with adult social care, health and housing. Obviously the importance of all of those organisations working closely together. Improving discharge and outcome from leaving hospital. We're looking at how we can find and support individuals that are leaving the hospital environment as quickly as possible. And sometimes it's very, very difficult to find placements, particularly those with significant and complex needs. Our third priority is to improve the supply and the flexibility in East Sussex, and that is to make sure that people that are requiring support have got access to good quality supply and supply that's able to manage and support individuals that might have flexible and needs, so they can support individuals moving into crisis, but support people to move away into recovery as well. And the fourth one is to improve the quality and inclusiveness. So we want to create an opportunity to work with providers so that we're getting more information around the outcomes individuals are experiencing, so that we can develop and improve services within our support accommodation system. And that also is going to be looking at EDI, cultural access to the services as well, making sure that people have got those opportunities from people that are from cultural and ethnic backgrounds. So we're going to be having a working group that's going to be pulling that information together. That's going to comprise of providers, people with lived experience, mental health operational colleagues from adult social care, brokerage, who are the people that look at and support the placements of individuals, and individuals from the clinical pathway. So that's a big bit of work that will be probably landing in July. We'll make sure that gets out to this group just so people are aware of that strategic plan and the delivery of that. Another area that we're working on is expansion of the IPS. For those of you that don't know, individual placement and support is IPS. It's a mental health specific employment support model. It's been established in East Sussex for a little over 18 years, I think. And across Sussex for a considerable amount of time. The governments, successive governments, have always valued the IPS model and singled out the IPS model to be delivered across the country. So we have an expansion process with that. It's going to double the expansion element of that over the next 5 years. Some of the nuance and difficulties around doing that is that, for those of you that know, neighbourhood mental health teams are evolving. They're kind of reducing their assessment and treatment services and teams, and making services more freely available in primary care and GP services. So it's about how IPS then starts to evolve within that evolving environment with neighbourhood mental health teams. So we're in the process of expanding. We've developed a funding schedule, what that looks like over the next 5 years. Our provider, Southdown, have been delivering this since the start, good 18 years ago, within East Sussex, so are currently delivering that programme. So that's another area that we've got a bit of work on, the expansion there. From a system point of view, I thought I'd update you regarding the ICB. For those of you that know, the NHS are reducing significantly the system. So the ICB were asked to, I think, reduce their resources by a considerable amount. I think it's something like 55%. And it's just to acknowledge that, because currently the impact is unclear. We're unsure what that's going to look like from a staffing structure and infrastructure that the ICB have. So we'll probably keep this group informed as soon as we're aware of that. But from what we understand, the ICB is going to combine with Surrey, so it's going to be a much larger organisation. So we'll keep you involved in that. And probably the last and probably more apt is around bereavement support. There's currently a process in developing Sussex-wide procurement process, and they're currently involved in designing specifications, etc. Sara and I are part of that working group, and again, we've got no firm dates on what that's going to look like. Personally, our views are that the timelines on it are extremely tight to really kind of refine and develop good quality bereavement support service provision. But we're involved in that, and there's little breakout working groups, etc., trying to ensure that we manage to establish the quality that we would expect within those processes. Once and it's not at that stage, but once it starts to move towards the procurement process, it will be advertised for providers to obviously bid for that. So we'll be making sure that our system is aware of that, and we're supporting providers if you want to move forward for that. So that is about our corner of the world, probably the most boring part of the whole meeting, so I apologise to you for that. And I hope that gives you a little awareness of some of the nooks and crannies that Commissioner's working in East Sussex.
Thank you, Kenny. I was just going to add, because I'm not sure if you said that the bereavement support is bereavement by suicide. I might have missed it, but just to make clear that
you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't. I do apologise for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very specific.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. Brilliant. Okay, so we've now got some partner exchange information. So some of these things are where I've got actual people presenting, and others I'm going to present on their behalf. So this is the first one. I think JC, you're here, so you can speak to your own slides, please.
Thank you. What an amazing meeting. It's so inclusive, and yeah, very, very brilliant meeting. Yeah, I'm just going to give you a brief update on the Baton of Hope, which is coming to Hastings on 23rd of September. Some of you may know it, the Baton of Hope is the largest suicide awareness campaign in the UK, and Hastings was selected as one of the routes on the tour. So we were very excited, and I'm working on behalf of Mr. Hastings and Leonard. So I'm the project lead for this, which involves a lot of oversight, a lot of bringing everyone together. It's obviously coming from the community. We've got a really good community of people volunteering, going to be volunteering on the day, have been volunteering up to now, pulling together all the bits and pieces that we need to pull together. So if we have the next slide, we kind of got a route now. It's a bit more than 14.5 miles, but it's going across Hastings. It's going to have checkpoints along the way. We're going to start at Hastings Castle. We're going to end up at the Stade open space for a finale event, and we'll be stopping at the hospital. We'll be doing something in Kings Road. We're working in partnership with White Rock Theatre, so we're going to have a bit of an event there, doing something at the skate park with some local skaters. But this is all kind of still just being finalised, but we're working alongside the National Baton of Hope. But this is very much a Hastings focused event, so there's lots of activities happening as in the lead up. Yeah, so this is all being finalised. We're creating a brochure, and so that will go out to local businesses along the route, so they have the opportunity to sponsor the brochure. So, you know, we're doing lots of fundraising, local businesses and getting the funding in, because no funding comes with this. So we are doing our own fundraising. We're very excited to say we have 48 baton bearers from Hastings and St Leonard's who will each be carrying a baton on this route for their own personal reasons. Either they've lost somebody to suicide, or they've survived suicide themselves, or they're really passionate about it. And so we want to make the day really meaningful, really impactful and wonderful for each and every baton bearer. So that, you know, that is the key for all this. And it's about people having those conversations, changing the way we talk about suicide. So we are offering some free training in partnership with Grassroots. We've also doing some mental health first aid training for our volunteers with Sandcastle. So we're doing lots of this safeguarding, and some of me and some of our team are also having clinical supervision with Counselling Plus, because as Liz was saying earlier, you know, we're hearing lots of stories firsthand. So, you know, we want to be safe as well. And part, you know, that is key, is hearing people's stories. So we started collecting videos of people's stories. We're doing some storytelling workshops. We're making flags together, Baton of Hope flags, so the community to come together with their symbols. We're working with local schools. We're working with lots of creative groups. You name it, we're doing it in various ways, and it's all going to come together for this day. So, and I think I've got one more slide, just saying what we're doing. So we're having fortnightly meetings on a Thursday evening at Central Hall, 6 till 8 o'clock, where we all come together and work out who's doing what, how it's happening, and everybody's getting involved. And there's roles on the day that we need filling still. So if anybody's interested, please do let me know. I have an HCA email, but I also have the Baton of Hope email, which is here. And you can look it up, things on Mr. Hastings and Leonard's webpage. And we've got Baton of Hope Hastings Facebook group, which everything goes up on there, what's coming up and what we're doing. So that was a very brief update, but there is so much happening. And it is about the community and the community leading the way, and how we can support that safely, how we can encourage people to open up, share their stories. You know, we're talking about, you know, working around the stigma around suicide, and it's, you know, it's powerful. It's very powerful, and it is all about hope. So it's not, you know, it is the Baton of Hope. So it's like there is a different way. There is, you know, this. Suicide is not the answer. There are different routes. There are people to talk to. There are services. You know, we are working with the Samaritans, Grassroots, and everybody we can. So it is very much about hope and sharing those stories, changing the way we have those conversations, and you know, enabling our community to have those conversations and feel safe. And obviously we're doing signposting, but there's lots. But when I've got a more detailed, I will share it with you all, and you can all see exactly where we're doing, where we're going to be, what's happening next, and how you can get involved.
Thank you so much, JC. And it sounds like there's going to be some legacy as well. So
Oh
yeah,
yes, yeah.
so
the
that's
flags will
great
be
stuff.
given to mental health providers locally that we're creating. We're creating 60 flags, and that, you know, and they will be passed on. And it is a legacy. It's to continue having those conversations.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, JC. Okay, we've got another Sarah, Sarah Dean, to talk about the VCSE Mental Health Network.
Hello, thank you. Yes, we've got, well, mainly I want to really talk to you about, we've got an event coming up on the 16th of July, which will be at Eastbourne Town. I think it's actually, we've changed it 1 till 5 now, but we're going to have a creative health panel with speakers discussing the impact of loneliness on mental health, and we're going to have some creative activities, and then we're going to do an interactive session around the new neighbourhood mental health teams model, which will really look at how the aligned services and wider network interacts with the neighbourhood team. So that's really aimed at voluntary and community groups to think about how they might want to be involved in that across Sussex. And yeah, so it's a Sussex wide event, but we will be in Eastbourne, so it'll be a great opportunity for people to come along to the town. Yeah, will just be a really lovely event, so it'll be great to see lots of you there. The links are on the slide, but you're also welcome to send me an email if you want to keep in contact with the Sussex VCSE Mental Health Network. I have a couple of newsletters that I send out each month to just share opportunities and information share and that sort of thing, anything that might be useful for you around mental health. And there's also the recordings from our last network meeting just available on the slide to have a little look to see what was discussed then. So yeah, keep in contact, and I'm putting together some webinars. So if anyone is interested in being involved in getting some key information out to people, then please do get in contact. I'm really keen to work with people and help make sure that the network's representing what the VCSE want it to be. So yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I just ask that event on July the 16th? I'm coming along, and it's not just for VCSE colleagues, is it?
No, it's anyone really that works in the sector that would be interested in networking with the VCSE around the topic.
Yeah, brilliant. Really looking forward to that. Good to see people face to face.
Absolutely. Thank you
very much. And the last sort of main bits of news that I've got there on behalf of another Sara Archer. She's the Chief Exec of Lewes District Citizens Advice. I'm not sure I've shared this before, but they've had a soft launch in January for an autism advice service. So they provide level 3 fully accredited and professional advice. But they have an additional autism specialism. It's a service for people who are 16 plus. They self-refer, and basically they're hoping to access more funding to extend their provision because there's been a massive response. It's really needed. What else did she say? I've got notes from Sarah. So many of the clients that Sarah's team is seeing also have mental health conditions and often suicidal thoughts. The complexity, vulnerability and mental health needs are significant in many of them, and the vast majority of people are coming for support primarily with welfare benefits, so it's connected with cost of living. So at the moment she's just got 4 days a week, and as I said, they're looking for additional funding, and they're working across with the Brighton and Hove Citizens Advice. So she just wanted you guys to know about that, and is welcoming if you want to contact her for any reason. Alistair.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to do a quick update of the visits at the our Community Information Hub. I'm Alistair from Hastings Heart. We run the Community Information Hub in Hastings Town Centre. The scale of the hub's operations never ceases to amaze me. We are looking to get to record approximately 3,000 inquiries this year. We do much more than signposting and referrals. We do. There are 5 organisations which now operate from there, including East Sussex Recovery Alliance, Macmillan Cancer Support, 1U East Sussex Health Promotion Support, Band of Brothers Mentors meet there to help young men who want to live lives free of crime. The Library of Things is there. And I just thought it might be quite interesting to look at some of the split of the inquiries that we get. Obviously, the majority of inquiries we get are to do with money matters. It's true. That's welfare benefits, it's pensions, it's debt counselling and so forth. And they obviously, we will help people prepare for the expert support they can get from places like Citizens Advice, and make sure that they get the most out of that referral. But in terms of the other things, 162, that's 5.4% relate to mental health issues. An even larger number of people just come in for a chat. So it's actually having an impact on helping people address the fact that they've got nobody to talk to. And that number is approximately 12% of the people that come in just want to chat. That's 342 people. And then lastly, one of the other principal areas that we help with is obviously with regard to people who are digitally excluded. That can cover all sorts of things, but where it relates specifically to digital exclusion, we deal with 22% of those cases of 3,000. That's nearly 700 people every year who are dealing with something because they simply cannot figure out how to get involved in using the digital services. They need empowerment. They've usually got some sort of facility. They might have a phone, but they have confidence issues. They want a helping hand to just make sure they're doing the right things. So it's a big operation. That doesn't include the 300 transport assignments we do every year to help people get to NHS appointments. It's incredibly busy. But it's very interesting to know what's going on in the rest of the region. And if anybody wants information that need to be disseminated to all of those people who are coming into the hub every year, and that's up 25%, by the way, year on year, we have lots and lots of posters, lots and lots of information leaflets that we can distribute as well. So please drop by, use this as a facility, and you're very welcome to come along and meet the team. That's it. There we go. That's my bit.
Thank you, Alistair. If you could send me something, I can distribute it to everybody. So that's around 150 members, because a lot of people watch this afterwards as well. Let's circulate that. But thank you, because that's really shown how all of what we do is very much knitted together, or should be. It's all interlinked. So yeah, really helpful. Thank you. I think we're probably ready to wind up, unless anyone else has got anything else they'd like to say. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. The next mental health action group will be a little bit later in September because of my holidays. So it'll be on the 18th of September. And then I'll also send out an invite soon for the one on the 17th of December. So thank you all for coming today, and please keep in touch. Please let me know if you've got any issues you'd like to see on the agenda, whether you would like to present them or you'd perhaps like to suggest somebody else do it, or just a general topic. That'd be brilliant. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.